Hello, dear students from first year. Let me start sharing my screen. This video is a short presentation of the class that we saw last Friday, October 16th, 2020, which is the first part of the class called Markets. This is all we will be dealing with, all we dealt with last week, and also in the class of this week, Markets too. The first thing we did was a discussion in the chat of how each student would define a market. What is a market? What are the things involved in a market? How does a market work, move? And the most common answer was that a market was a place where people exchanged products for money. And yeah, that is exactly what a market is in the context of this subject. We will expand a bit on that. What is a market? What a market is, what the types of markets are, etc. You will see. And also on competition, which was a really important part of this class. When we say, or when we ask ourselves, what is a market? The first thing that comes to mind, maybe it's one of those, or of these two images. The first one, the one on the left, is a farmer's market. In here, they are not nearly as organized, but you get the idea of producers coming and selling their stuff. On the one on the right, we have like little artisans, craftsmen, people who produce things and they sell them. Maybe that's what comes to mind when we are talking about markets. Almost everyone has seen a flea market, right? Or a farmer's market. Usually every community has them. However, markets exist everywhere and in many different forms. For example, the internet music business, when an artist uploads a song to YouTube, but it's also available on YouTube Music, and it's also on Spotify, and you can buy it from Apple Music, but you can also download it with a free trial, etc. That is all part of the internet music business, and that looks nothing like a farmer's market at all, but it is still a market. So the first thing we will do is define the types of markets: physical, electronic, or a combination of physical and electronic. For example, physical markets are those that are in a given place, such as a flea market or a farmer's market. Electronic markets are online. For example, the internet music business. It could also be a combination of physical and electronic. For example, the video game industry. Video games, you have things that are strictly online when you buy a software, when you buy a game and they send it directly to you or to your console. That is an electronic market. But if you buy the console itself, the controllers, the game with the case, etc., that is a physical market. So you have a combination of the two. If we go to the thing they have in common, because all markets have things in common, we would find these two things. First of all, they are places where people exchange products. It doesn't matter if it's trading, if I give you a product and you give me something else that is not money, or if money is being used as a medium of exchange. Remember that that is one of the main functions of money. And it could be a product. In that circumstance, you're exchanging a product for money. That is common to all markets. On the second place, they have two main figures. They have sellers and have buyers. A controversial question was a bit later in another slide about the main figures of markets. However, for the purpose of this lesson, the main figures are only two, sellers and buyers, and I will explain why a bit later. This is if I ask you, for example, to define a market in terms of a system. in a drawing, this would be the answer to that. You have buyers who have money and you have sellers who have a product. Then the sellers give the product to the buyers and the buyers give money to the sellers. So what is the main purpose of a market? In this case, we could think, well, yeah, it's to provide jobs, it's to allow the government to collect taxes, it's to provide a place for people to see products, but actually the answer, it's the last one, allow the exchange of products, because that is why markets exist, to be places where we can exchange products for other products. Now, who are the main players in a market? This was a controversial question I was referring to a bit before this, because we have a lot of mixed answers. We could say, well, buyers, sellers, and producers, but bankers are also important. Farmers are relevant as well. And in here, the answer is only buyers and sellers. Why is this? Well, in order to have an exchange of a product, you need someone that is offering the product and someone that is willing to buy it. If the person who wants to buy a product has no one to buy it from, that means there is no seller, you don't have a market because there's no exchange. And on the other hand, if the seller has many things, but he doesn't have people to sell those things to, there is no exchange either. So you need buyers and you need sellers. Producers, why aren't producers considered main players in the market? Because at the end of the day, producers are also sellers. And the bottom line, they sell what they produce, so they become sellers. Why are bankers not important or not as important? Because they are all important, certainly, but buyers and sellers are more important than the rest. Because bankers, they provide the structure, they provide maybe the accounts, they provide the cards, they provide the money that is not physical money, but that is stored in an account. However, you could have a trade economy where there is no money. You just exchange products for other products, and that doesn't include money. So you could have market without bankers. And the same thing is with farmers as with producers. Farmers farm, they have their cattle, they have their vegetables, fruits, whatever. But at the end of the day, they sell what they produce to other people. And that makes them sellers. Now, markets can be defined in many different ways. One way, for example, is by what products are sold in them. For example, the housing market is generally made of family homes. Maybe you could have an apartment, maybe you can have a mansion, but the main or most common thing is a family home. Another way to classify a market is by its structure. For example, the number of buyers and sellers or the level of competition. Remember that I mentioned competition? This is what we will focus on. What effect competition has in a market. Okay, we will, I will not do this here because this was like a case scenario, but I will explain it briefly. Okay. I need to stop this just 1 second. Okay, we're back. I'm going to explain this briefly, okay? It was to illustrate what we just discussed. Suppose you raise chinchillas as a hobby. That animal on the top left corner is a chinchilla. It's similar to a hamster. And you know that your town is having a semi-annual, that means 2 times per year, pet and animal market where people come and trade, buy and sell pets and other animals. So because you have a lot of chinchillas, you decide to sell some of them at this market. And you want to make money out of this sale. Market day comes around and you pack up your chinchillas and head to the market. Now, this is like a different scenarios situation. Would you like to see other people selling chinchillas at the market? Maybe you say yes, but maybe you say no because you want to be the only one who offers chinchillas. But if you say yes, well, maybe it's because you want to allow people to check for themselves that your chinchillas are the best. We're going to go through these possible options. First one, supposing that you don't want any competition. In this case, you don't see any people or any other people selling chinchillas. What do? Do you adjust your prices? You could lower them, you could increase them, or you could leave them as they were. What would be the most common answer? Yes, I lower them because I want to make sure I sell all of my chinchillas. However, this would be incorrect because since you're the only one selling chinchillas, of course, this is an ideal situation where people actually are interested in buying chinchillas, and your prices are lower than people expect, you sell out in an hour. So you sit around for the rest of the day wondering if you could have made more money out of the same chinchillas. So what would be the right answer? The second one. You increase your prices because people can see that your chinchillas are worth it. There's no one else selling them, and you can win more money out of the same amount of chinchillas. This is the ideal outcome of this situation. Now let's go back to our first question and suppose that you do want competition. You say, yes, I want other people to find out and test that my product is actually the best one out here. What happens there? You also notice that these people who have chinchillas are selling them for lower prices. What do? Do you adjust your prices or you don't? Well, you could say, yes, I lower them because I need to compete. You could say, I increase them because they have the best chinchillas and they are worth it. And you can say, no, I don't change the prices because although I'm worried about my competition, I know that my chinchillas are the absolute best and people will come get them. This answer depends a lot on what you as a person are willing to do. Maybe you are more willing to take risks than others. But in here, it's like, it's statistically speaking what most people would do and what would make more sense in a real market competition situation. In this case, the most sensible option is the first one. You lower your prices because maybe the people at the fair do not know your chinchillas. You do not have any advertisement. There is no way to actually prove that your chinchillas are the best. So you need to compete with the others. You want the people in the market to take your chinchillas home, not the other guys. So you lower your prices to make your chinchillas even more attractive. And this is called competition. You lower your prices to compete with another person. And competition is an activity done by a number of people or even organizations, each of which is trying to do better than all the others. Remember that there is competition everywhere. If you play sports, you're probably trying to be better than the rest. If you are a very dedicated student, you're probably trying to be the best student in your class. If you play an instrument, you probably want the best spot in the concert of your academy, and that is won out of practice and out of being the best. So that is also competition. But when there is competition between sellers, which is what we are discussing right now, next week we will cover competition between buyers, the price of a product is generally lower. Why? Because you need to attract customers. You need to fight for their money. So you lower prices to make it more appealing, more attractive. What do you have to do with this information? Well, you copy slides 6, 7, 8, and 13. Then the check for your understanding questions, slides 10 and 12. And as I have mentioned, we continued with the topic this week, and Markets 2 is the last topic for the test that we will be having on October the 30th. Thank you very much. Remember that if you have any question, concern, doubt, existential debate, you can email me via Academia and I will answer as soon as I can.